Welcome to Healing the Tigress, a podcast of conversations and stories on Asian American Pacific Islander maternal mental health. We are your hosts. I'm Peggy, a perinatal mental health therapist.
And I'm Jasmine, a clinical pharmacist who is perinatal mental health certified. Both of us are Taiwanese American mothers who have lived experiences of postpartum depression and anxiety. It felt like we didn't see anyone who looked like us also struggling with their mental health in new motherhood. But we would go on to learn that it wasn't just us and that there was so much more to perinatal mental health.
So we created this podcast because we know that sharing these stories can begin to break the stigma of mental health in our community, and we want to help heal the inner tigress in all AAPI parents. Let's get started.
Today's episode focuses on the pressure and mental strains of trying to teach our children our mother language. As you know, Peggy and I are second-generation Taiwanese Americans. There's some controversy on the phrasing of first or second generation, but we define ourselves as second generation. That means our parents were the first in their family to immigrate to the US, and then we were born in the States. And then being children of immigrants, we grew up with our parents' mother tongues spoken in the house and also going to Chinese school on the weekends to learn how to read and write Chinese.
But as we became mothers ourselves, we faced different challenges in teaching our children Mandarin Chinese. So in today's episode, we're going to open up with you about our struggles and what this journey has looked like for us, our experiences learning Chinese ourselves, and how we're approaching the way we might want our children to learn language.
Yeah, and I feel like this is something that has sort of I've been wrestling with it for a long time. And I don't know about you, and I know we're going to probably kick off talking about our own experiences with learning Chinese growing up, but I think the pressure and strain of being able to pass down that language to my child has always been there. It's just sort of like a thing in the background that I've always sort of like had to wrestle with that. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this happen? Right? And there was that extra pressure on top of all the other pressures of motherhood. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this with you today and talk about it a little bit more. But I think it does stem or go back to maybe about our own experiences as children learning Chinese, where we are today with that. And then I think that leads into what we want to do with our kids and maybe how that needs to change if it doesn't align the same way or just the circumstances are different now when we're the parent. So I guess maybe we'll start there. I don't know if you want to kick us off, Peggy, telling us about like your experience learning Chinese and going to Chinese school. Did you go to Chinese school? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I actually had Chinese as my first language. And I actually didn't really know that until later in life when my mom had explained to me that my first language was actually Chinese. But because I was born here, I obviously quickly picked up English much quicker, especially having an older sibling who would speak it with me. And so I was growing up just only speaking Chinese at home. And I think maybe even when I was younger, probably speaking a little bit with my sister, but most of the English language being spoken in the home was just with my sister. And it was solely Mandarin Chinese with my parents, with my grandparents who lived with us times of the year. And I did go to Chinese school growing up, starting in kindergarten. I did the whole gamut. And that was for us, I believe it was Sundays. I can't remember anymore. And then later it was Saturdays. But we all were very involved in Chinese school. It was like Chinese school, Chinese folk dance through Chinese school. My mom was a Chinese school teacher at some point.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She taught Chinese.
Yeah. And I think she taught like the younger grades, but she was a Chinese school teacher for a little bit.
Wow.
And so Chinese school was just part of our weekends and through all of it was just like we had to go to Chinese school. Both me and my sister went to Chinese school. We had Chinese school homework and stuff, and it was part of our everyday.
Was there a lot of Asians in the community? Like, was it a small Chinese school? Was it like a big thing that all the kids did kind of thing?
So I grew up on the East Coast. At the time there was a smaller Chinese community, but that was probably where most of my Asian friends were from, was family friends or family friends because we knew them through Chinese school. So there, I would say, I can't remember how big of a community or school it was, but it was probably like one of the main ones that the Chinese people in our community would go to. And it was big enough that like there's like an association of Chinese school teachers, and so my mom would take me to Taiwan almost every summer because she was part of like a summer training program for American Chinese school teachers, and she got to go to these things in Taiwan, and she would just drag me there.
That's so interesting for me to hear about that, like on the East Coast, you were having this experience, whereas I was on the West Coast and kind of having very similar experiences. And Chinese was also my first language, but I was the eldest daughter. So, of course, that's the only thing I grew up knowing because that's all my parents spoke around me. So, that was my first language. I listened to like a lot of Chinese music in my parents' cars, and I would be singing all those old classic like Chinese songs. And I wouldn't even know what I was singing sometimes. I would actually sing in Taiwanese too,
Mm.
but I didn't understand that as well. My mom would be like, "Do you know what you're singing?" And I'm like, "Nope, not at all." But I'd be singing it back to her. And I remember going to preschool when I was 4. And at that point, I knew no English at all. I remember going to school, and the first day, my mom dropping me off, and I was so worried. I asked her, I was like, in Chinese, I was like, "What do I do if I don't know how to speak English? Like, I don't know how to say anything. Like, what am I supposed to do?" And I might have known like a couple of phrases. I had memorized the entire movie of Peter Pan front to back because that was the only VHS movie I had at home, and I would watch that over and over. I didn't know what anything meant, but I could repeat it. And my mom's like, "It's okay. You'll learn. You'll pick it up. You know, it's easy. You'll get into it really quickly." And I remember actually the first like probably month or so was really miserable because the teachers would be like, "Oh, it's nap time," and I'd be trying to like tell her I need to go to the bathroom in Chinese, and she wouldn't let me because she's like, "No, no, you gotta like sit down, like you gotta lie down," and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go to the bathroom." And so I remember that experience was a little bit traumatizing, but you do learn quickly as kids, and that's kind of the time to be learning the language. And so I did pick up English, and it's interesting to hear you say also like from your experience as like the younger sibling, because I think my sister had similar experiences where like I would be passing on the English to her at home, even though there would be like Chinese all over the place. So her Chinese starting off maybe wasn't as strong as mine was because that was purely all I knew. But yeah, then I think we started Chinese school. I actually started a year late. I started in first grade instead, but I was in the with the kindergartners when I was already in first grade. So I was with the kids that were technically in like, regular school who were a little bit younger than me. And I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why I started a little bit later, but actually, same as you, my dad taught at the Chinese school.
Mm,
So that's why I was really like piqued when you said your mom taught Chinese, like she was at the Chinese school. My dad didn't teach Chinese, but he taught like culture classes. So he taught Chinese chess. He was really
fun.
good. He was really good at teaching that. And I just remembered it was pretty easy for me at first. I think because I spoke it so much at home. And my dad, even though he didn't teach Chinese, he would sit with me a lot of times to coach me through the homework and teach me like the significance of things and the meaning of things and why. And I think that made it a lot more interesting for me to understand like, oh, this word, like you're learning it in this context here, but what how else can you use it? What else, where else do you hear it? He made it like really fun for me. And actually, so by the time I hit like third grade, my Chinese teachers were like, "You know what? She is progressing pretty fast." Actually, I think it was second grade. She's progressing pretty well and doing very good in class, that actually if you wanted her to skip a grade to be with her peers in her like grade level, like school grade level, you could do that. And so I remember spending one summer like basically learning all of the third grade stuff, just and then taking a test so I could catch up and start anew with like the fourth graders that were in my
Wow.
year, like that next year. So I did that too. So I think I had a pretty strong Chinese foundation growing up. And maybe it was because of that that I felt like, oh gosh, like this is like something we got to pass down. This is something
Mhm.
like, this is something we do, right? Like same like you, our weekends, ours were on Saturdays, and it was literally like Saturday mornings was just packed with Chinese school culture classes. and then you'd get lunch, and then, then you'd like go home in the afternoon. And we actually drove like probably 20 some minutes just to get to our Chinese
Mhm.
school every weekend. So it was quite a commitment.
Yeah. Ours was quite outside our town as well, because again, this was like in a small town on the East Coast. But I think when you are immigrant parents
Mhm.
and you're like, where is my resource so that my child is going to learn this? They will commit and they will make it happen and they'll go as far as they can. What I think is really curious to me is that I know for a fact, this isn't just me putting myself down, that your Chinese is like far better than mine in terms of like the ability to read and write. I cannot read and write very well. I don't know where I lost it because we both started around the same age,
Yeah.
but at some point I ended up when I was in like high school, I ended up in like the remedial Chinese school class in our Chinese school. At this point, you and I were in the same Chinese school.
You were taking Chinese all the way up till then, too?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wonder what I'm saying what went wrong with me, but I
No,
wonder
no.
what this is where I feel like our Chinese school experiences must have diverged.
Yeah.
If you want to hear more of this bonus episode, please become one of our subscribers on Buzzsprout at healingthetigress.buzzsprout.com or click the support the show link in the show notes. Once you subscribe, you can listen from the Buzzsprout page, or you can put a unique RSS feed into your podcast platform of choice to listen directly through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or more. And you'll have access to all of our past subscriber-only episodes too. These subscriptions help fund our recording and publishing platforms and help us to continue to keep doing this work to destigmatize mental health. Your support is deeply appreciated in helping normalize talking about these topics in our AAPI community and beyond. Thank you for listening.
We want to thank you deeply for tuning into this episode of Healing the Tigress. The more we share these stories, the more we can help our AAPI mothers and partners. If you enjoyed this episode and our mission, you can help us out in the following ways. Follow our show wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and or a review, and share our podcast with a friend.
We also encourage you to follow us on Instagram at Healing the Tigress, where we hope to build a community of healing tigresses and give you updates on what's coming. And if you want more bonus episodes, please check out our show notes for how to subscribe to our exclusive content. Or you can also head over to our Buzzsprout page at healingthetigress.buzzsprout.com. We are not for profit. We are here to help our community, but any support you give us is so deeply appreciated. Above all, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here.
Healing the Tigress is produced and edited by Peggy and Jasmine.
Music for this show is remixed by Dr. Tony Huynh of Tony Mixes.
Our intro music is a cover of You and Me by Z Avi, played by our co-host Peggy.
Our outro music is a cover of Green Island Serenade, played by Jasmine's sister.
Cover art design is by Dr. Angela Chung.